Hey Latin 1 students, for tonight's homework we're going to learn the Latin alphabet. And the nice thing about the Latin alphabet is that all of the letters look just like things that we've got in the English alphabet. In fact, the Latin alphabet's a little bit simpler than the English alphabet because there are a couple letters that it doesn't have. So if you look at this full alphabet, which I've written out on this slide, you're not going to see any J's, you're not going to see any W's, okay? Y and Z aren't very common in the Latin alphabet. So Latin actually has fewer letters to worry about than English does. And another nice thing about the Latin alphabet is that most of the letters are going to be pronounced exactly like they're pronounced in English. They're going to be exactly what you'd expect. So here I've bolded and underlined all the letters that sound exactly the same as they would in English. B is going to make a B sound. D is going to make a D sound. F is going to make a F sound, okay? All of those letters that are bolded and underlined are going to be really easy. We're not going to have to think about them. We're not going to have to worry about them. We can just ignore them. So that leaves us with only 9 letters that are a little bit weird or tricky. We've got all our vowels here in this list, A, E, I, O, U. We've got a couple consonants, C, G, R, and V. Now, probably the trickiest letters to get the hang of are the Latin vowels. Like English, Latin has 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, and U, but these are often going to be pronounced differently than they would be in English. One of the things that's tricky about Latin vowels is that a vowel can be either long or short, and it'll be pronounced slightly differently when it's long versus when it's short. You can always tell if a vowel is long or short because long vowels will always have this line called a macron written over the top of them. So whenever you see a vowel with a line on top, you know that that's a long vowel. If you see just a plain vowel without any line, then that's going to be a short vowel. As I said, they're going to have slightly different pronunciations when they're long versus when they're short. To see this, first of all, let's look at long A and short A. The letter A in Latin is always going to be pronounced ah, like the sound in father. It's never going to make an A sound like in the English word cake, and it's never going to make an A sound like in the English word bad. It's always just going to be ah. And the only difference between long A and short A is that the long A is basically just held out a little bit longer. So if we look at this Latin word that I've written at the bottom of this slide, we see it's spelled A-M, long A, R-E. The first A is short, the second A is long, so I'm going to hold out that second A a little bit longer than the first one. So here's the pronunciation. Really listen for the difference between these two vowels. Okay, this word would be pronounced amare, amare. So I've really exaggerated it there. You don't have to hold it out quite that long, but that's the basic idea. First A short, second A long, amare. Okay. On this slide, I've given you 3 words that have both long and short A's in them. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to try and say each of these, and then I'll come back in, give you the pronunciation after you've had some time to try it out. You can hear my pronunciation, and then you can repeat after me to make sure that you're really getting the difference between these short and long vowels in. So why don't you go ahead and take a few seconds to try and pronounce these 3 Latin words on this slide. Okay, so the pronunciation for these, this first word, the first A that you see in the word is short, the second A that you see is long. This word will be pronounced capiamos. Capiamos, okay? The second word here, starting with A-M-B, the first A is short, and then towards the end of the word we get a long A. So this is going to be ambulatis, ambulatis. And finally, this third word, it's got a long A in the first syllable, a short A in the second syllable, so this is going to be pronounced stabat, stabat. Okay, try to pronounce those 3 words one more time on your own. Okay, nice work. Let's move on to long and short E. Long E is always going to be pronounced A, like the sound in 8 or in state, okay? And short E is always going to be pronounced like the sound in pet or in bet. Okay, so if I look at this Latin word that I've written down here, M-O-N, long E, R-E, that first E is going to be pronounced A, and the second E is going to be pronounced eh. So this whole word is going to be pronounced as monere, monere, okay? Now, something that you might have noticed in monere and in the word that we saw in the last slide is that every vowel is always pronounced in Latin. So in English, if we look at this word spelled M-O-N-E-R-E, we might think that the last E is silent, that final E's are going to be silent in English a lot of the time. But in Latin, there's no such thing as a silent letter, every vowel is always pronounced. So we're going to make sure to pronounce our long E, A, our short E, E, and we get the word monere with 3 syllables. So once again, here are 3 words for you to practice pronouncing these vowels on. Notice that we've also got at least one long A in here, so do your best to try and pronounce these 3 words, and I'll give you the pronunciation in a few seconds. Okay, so these words are going to be pronounced. The first word is going to be rediebas, rediebas. The first E is short, re. That second E is long, so we're going to get redie, and then we get that long A in the last syllable, giving us our long, drawn-out ah sound. So this is going to be pronounced rediebas. Okay, the second word, we've got 3 E's in here. The first and last one are short. The one in the middle is long, so this is going to be egere, egere. And finally, this word at the bottom, starting with ing, has the first E in this word is short, the second E is long. This is going to be pronounced ingredieres, ingredieres. So take a second and try pronouncing those 3 words again to make sure you've got this pronunciation down. Okay, awesome. That's going to bring us to long and short I. Long I is always going to be pronounced like the E sound in street or eat. So strangely, the I letter in Latin never makes the I sounds that we know from English. It's always going to be E when it's long. And a short I is always going to be pronounced like the I sound in sit or in pit. So if we come down to the Latin word that I've written here, spelled A-U-D, long I-T-I-S, that first I is going to be pronounced E, the second I is going to be pronounced I, so this whole word would be pronounced auditis, auditis. Here are some words for you to get practice. Why don't you go ahead and try to say these on your own? Okay, so looking at this first word, we've got 3 I's. The first and last one are going to be short. The one in the middle is long, so this will be pronounced inuit, inuit. Okay, second word, starting with the M here, has the first I in the word is long, the middle I in the word is short, and the last I in the word is long, so this will be pronounced molimini, molimini. And then this third word has a long I in the middle of the word and a short I at the end. This will be pronounced partitis, partitis. Why don't you try and do those one more time on your own before we move on? Great, nice work. This brings us to long and short O. Long O is always going to be pronounced as an O sound, like in the words wrote or road in English. Short O is going to be pronounced like the aw sound in pot or hot. That might sound a little bit like the A in father. If you don't make a big difference between those two, that's totally fine. So long O is an O sound, short O is an aw sound. So if I look at the Latin word that I've written down here, O-P-T long O, the first O is short, that's going to be aw, so opt. The second O is long, that's going to be an O sound, O, so this whole word is opto, opto. Why don't you go ahead and try to pronounce these 3 words that I've put on this slide. So take a few seconds and do that, and then I'll give you the pronunciation. Okay, so this first word, the first O in that is going to be short, so that's going to be an aw sound. So ob, ob. The last O is going to be long, so that's an O sound. So this whole word is obeo, obeo, with that short E right in the middle making an S sound. The second word here has a short O in the first syllable and a long O in the second one. So this will be pronounced sororis, sororis. Okay, and the third one, the first O is short. The O at the end of the word is long, so this will be pronounced moneo, moneo. The last vowel that we need to talk about today is U, which has both long and short versions. Long U with that macron is always going to be pronounced oo, like the sound in suit or loot. Short U is going to be pronounced like the sound in put or soot. So the word that I've got here, FR, short U, CT, long U, S, that first U is going to be pronounced like in put or soot. So fruk. And then that second U is going to be pronounced oo, so the whole word is going to be pronounced fructus. So here are some words. Why don't you go ahead and try to do them on your own? Okay, so this first word has a short U in the first syllable and a long U at the end of the word. So that first U is going to be pronounced ku. That last U is going to be pronounced oo. So kupitu. Okay, this second word has like a million long vowels in it. Okay, so this is going to give us a lot of practice on those long vowels. The first U in this word is going to be long. So that first syllable is mu. Okay, then we see a long I, so muni. We got a long O coming shortly after that. Munitio. And then the last U is short. Munitionum. And this third word here has a long U, long I, and a short U. So the first syllable will be pu, second syllable ni, third syllable mus. Punimus. Now, sometimes when two vowels show up next to each other in certain combinations, they can take on a different pronunciation. And these vowel combinations are called diphthongs. They're made up of two different vowel sounds. There are only 3 of these diphthongs, and they're just a different pronunciation that you have to know. So when an A and an E show up next to each other, that's one of our 3 diphthongs. That combination of vowels will always be pronounced I, like the sound in flight or I. So this Latin word, T-E-R-R-A-E, we look at this, we see our A-E combination, our diphthong there. This word will be pronounced terrai. Okay, terrai. The second diphthong that we have to look out for is AU. When those two vowels show up right next to each other, they're going to be pronounced like the sound in how or in out. So this word down here, A-U-D-I, long O, we're going to see AU. That's one of these combinations we have to look out for. That's one of our diphthongs. It's going to be pronounced ow. So this word is going to be pronounced audio. And finally, our last diphthong, our last kind of combination of vowels is OE. Whenever O and E show up right next to each other, they're going to be pronounced oi, like in boy or joy. And so here in the Latin word that I've written under this diphthong, this word's going to be pronounced poinai. Did you notice that there's also a diphthong in the second syllable, that AE diphthong? So this word actually has 2 different diphthongs for you to practice with. Poi in the first syllable, with OE being pronounced oi, and I in the second syllable, with AE being pronounced I. Poinai. Here are 5 words that mix and match these different diphthongs. Why don't you take a few seconds to try and pronounce them? Okay, so this first word, starting with the H, it's got that combination AE, so that's going to be pronounced I. So this word will be pronounced haireo. Okay, it's a nice short E in the middle of the word and a long O at the end. The second word, starting CAU, that's got that AU combination. That's going to be pronounced ow. So the first syllable is cow. Okay, we've got a long O in the middle of the word. So po, cow, po. And then we get our AE diphthong, which is pronounced as I in the last syllable of the word. So this whole word is going to be pronounced cowponai. The third word, starting with MOE, we've got that OE combination that's going to be pronounced oi. So this word's going to be pronounced moinia. Fourth word, starting COE, has that same OE combination, that same OE diphthong. So that first syllable will be pronounced coip. And then in the second syllable, we get the AE diphthong that's going to be pronounced I. So the whole word is coiptai. And finally, we've got a couple diphthongs in this fifth word. The very first syllable has AU in it, so that's going to make an ow sound. So the first syllable will be ow. Okay, we've got a long I in the middle of the word, so we've got audi, audi. And then we've got an AE diphthong at the end that'll be pronounced I. So this whole word is auditai, auditai. That does it for all the vowels and all of our diphthongs. So now we only have 4 consonants left that can be kind of tricky sometimes. The first 2 really work in the same way. These are going to be C and G. These letters are actually easier than they are in English because C and G are always pronounced in only one way. So C is always going to be a hard K sound, like in cave or kid. It's never going to be pronounced like an S, like in the word ceiling or anything like that. It's always a K no matter what. And G is the same thing. G is always a hard G sound, like in got or guest. It's never ever going to be a J sound, like in the English word gem, for example. So C is always K, G is always G. Here are some words. Try and pronounce these, keeping your C's as K's and your G's as G's. Take a few seconds to try and practice these. Okay, so for this first word, we're going to see a C there. Whenever we see C in Latin, we know it's always going to be a K sound. So these first 2 syllables would be recap. Okay, and then we've got one of those diphthongs that we just talked about at the end of the word. We've got that AE combination of vowels, so that'll be pronounced I. So this whole word is going to be receptai, receptai. The second word that we see here, once again, has one of those diphthongs we just talked about, AU, so this is going to be pronounced ow at the beginning of this word. We see a G, we know that G is always a G sound, so this word will be pronounced auget, auget. Okay, here we've got a name that you might have seen before. This is the name of a famous orator and politician from ancient Rome. In English, we call him Cicero, but now you know that in Latin, C is always going to make a K sound. So this isn't going to be Cicero in Latin, it's going to be Cicero, Cicero, with those hard K sounds for both of those C's. And we've got the same thing with this other name, the last word that's on this slide. This is the name of an author from very late in the Roman Empire. His name's not going to be pronounced Gellius. He's not jelly, okay? This is Gellius. Gellius with a hard G sound. This brings us to R. R in Latin isn't really tricky. It's just that it's always rolled like ours in Spanish or Italian are. So this... the most proper pronunciation for each of these words would be raucus for the first one. Raucus with an AU diphthong making that ow sound. Raucus. Okay. The R's in this second word are going to be rolled. So gradarius. Gradarius with a nice long A in the middle of the word and with rolling our R's. And the third word down here is going to be capereiris. Capereiris. Short A, short E, long E, short I. Capereiris, capereiris. If you can't roll your R's, that's totally okay. It's just that it's more authentic to roll them, but you won't be deducted points or anything if you've got if you're not able to roll your R's. So don't worry too much about it. Okay, V is probably the trickiest consonant to get used to for people who speak English. In English, we want V to be a V sound. We want it to be a V sound, but Latin actually doesn't have a V sound. Latin doesn't have a V, and so the letter V is always going to be pronounced like an English W. And Latin doesn't have a separate letter for W. So whenever you see V in Latin, it's always going to be pronounced W. There are no V's in Latin, there are no letter W's. V is always pronounced like a W. W. Okay? So go ahead and try to pronounce these 3 words and phrases that I've got for you here, making sure that all of your V's are pronounced as W sounds with that W sound. W. Go ahead and try those out. Okay, so for this first one, we see, well, first of all, we see the letter C, and we might want to pronounce this word as civicus. This gives us the English word civic, like your civic duty, a phrase that you might have heard, but this is Latin, so we know that the C is going to be hard, a hard K, and we know that the V is going to be pronounced as a W, so this word's going to be pronounced kiwicus, Kiwicus. Okay, this next bullet point is a famous quote of Julius Caesar. It means I came, I saw, I conquered. You might have heard it pronounced in English as veni, vidi, vici. Okay, but now you know that that pronunciation is all kinds of messed up because all of our V's are going to have to be W sounds. And the C in that third word that you'll hear pronounced as vici, that C has to be a hard K sound, as we now know. So this phrase will be pronounced wainy, weedy, weaky. Wainy, weedy, weaky. Okay? And finally, this third bullet point is the name of a famous Roman poet. In English, we call him Virgil. He wrote the Aeneid, which is a really famous mythological text. So in English, we call him Virgil, but in Latin, as we now know, his name is going to be Vergilius. Okay, so the V at the beginning is going to be pronounced as a W. Where. Our R is going to be rolled. And then our G is not going to be a J sound like in Virgil, it's going to be a G sound because Latin G is always G, so this will be pronounced Vergilius, Vergilius. Okay, now there's one little thing that I kind of need to sneak into this consonant section, and that is something about the letter I. Now, you might be thinking, hey, isn't I a vowel? We just talked about long and short I's being pronounced as E and I a little bit ago, so why is I now in the consonant section? And the answer is that because sometimes the letter I can actually be pronounced as a consonant. It can be pronounced like the Y in yellow or yield. And you can normally figure this out just kind of instinctually. One of them will sound right and the other one won't. As a general rule, if I is at the beginning of a word or in between two vowels, that's when you're thinking it might be pronounced as a Y. But we've got I functioning as a Y in all three of the words that I've written down here. So this first word would be pronounced yubeo, yubeo. With that I being pronounced as a Y sound. The second word would be yactus, yactus, with I being pronounced as a Y. Both of those cases, the I is at the beginning of a word. So whenever we see that, we're thinking that the I might be pronounced as a Y sound. And then in the third word, we see I showing up in between two vowels. That's another case where I is often pronounced as a consonant. So this will be pronounced gaius, gaius, where that I is making a Y sound. All right, and that's the Latin alphabet. That's all for your for this video, and I look forward to seeing you and practicing this stuff more tomorrow. Bye.